I have always loved hiking alone, not because I disliked people, but because solitude did something to my mind that nothing else could. The forest felt honest. No noise, no expectations, no masks. Just trees, dirt, and the sound of your own breathing reminding you that you are alive. That's why, on that particular morning, I didn't think twice before parking my car at the edge of the national forest just after sunrise. The trail was familiar, well-marked, and considered safe by every guidebook I'd ever read. Families hiked here, dog walkers, amateur photographers. I had walked it at least 6 times before. I carried enough water, snacks, a compass, a fully charged phone, and a basic first aid kit. I told myself I was prepared. What I wasn't prepared for was how quickly the forest would begin to feel like it was listening. The hike started normally. Sunlight filtered through tall pine trees, birds chirped in the distance, and the ground was damp from rain the night before. My boots crunched softly against gravel and fallen leaves, and I remember thinking how peaceful everything felt. About 40 minutes in, the trail narrowed and dipped slightly downhill, the trees growing thicker on either side. The air felt cooler there, heavier somehow, but I brushed it off as morning shade. I kept walking, breathing steadily, enjoying the quiet. That's when I heard the first whistle. It was faint, almost playful, a simple tune, the kind someone might whistle absent-mindedly while walking. At first, I smiled. I assumed another hiker was somewhere behind me, maybe out of sight around a bend. It didn't feel threatening, just human. I slowed my pace slightly, expecting to see someone eventually catch up, but the whistling stopped. Complete silence returned. No footsteps, no rustling, nothing. I continued walking. A few minutes passed. Then, the whistle came back. Same tune, same pitch. It sounded closer this time, but when I turned around, the trail behind me was empty, long and straight. No one. I felt a flicker of unease, but I told myself sound carries strangely in forests. Trees distort direction. Every experienced hiker knows that. I started walking again, and once more, the whistle followed. Not louder, not softer, just matched me. When I slowed down, it slowed. When I stopped completely, it stopped too. That was the moment my stomach tightened. I stood there for nearly a full minute, heart thudding, listening. Birds had gone silent. Even the wind felt like it had paused. I cleared my throat and called out, "Hello?" My voice sounded wrong, swallowed by the trees. No answer. I tried to laugh it off, but my body didn't believe the joke. I picked up my pace, telling myself that, if it was another hiker, they'd either reveal themselves or move on. Instead, the whistling resumed, perfectly synchronized with my steps. It wasn't echoing anymore. It felt deliberate, like someone was just out of sight, careful not to be seen. I checked my phone. No signal. That wasn't unusual for this area, but suddenly it mattered. The trail marker ahead showed I was still on the main path. But the forest around me had grown darker, the canopy thicker, the light dimmer. I realized I hadn't seen another person for over an hour. That's when I made my first mistake. I stopped again, turned fully around, and shouted, "If you're messing with me, it's not funny." The whistling stopped instantly. The silence that followed was worse than the sound. It pressed against my ears, made my skin crawl. I waited, expecting laughter, footsteps, something. Nothing came. I turned back around, and as soon as I took my first step forward, the whistle started again, but this time, it wasn't behind me. It was to my left, deeper in the trees. Panic crept in slowly, like cold water seeping through fabric. I knew better than to leave the trail, but fear has a way of rewriting logic. I told myself it would be safer to put distance between me and whatever was following me. I quickened my pace, almost jogging now. The whistle stayed with me, shifting positions, sometimes behind, sometimes to the side, and never came from the same direction twice. My breathing became shallow, my thoughts scattered. I tried to remember rational explanations, whined through branches, birds mimicking human sounds, but nothing fit. The tune was too precise, too human. As the sun climbed higher, the forest somehow grew darker. Shadows stretched longer than they should have. I reached a section where the trail split, one path clearly marked, the other narrower and less traveled. I hesitated. The whistling stopped again. The quiet felt like a held breath. Then, softly, directly ahead of me, the whistle resumed. Same tune, same rhythm. My blood ran cold. It was waiting on the main trail. Without thinking, I took the narrower path. Branches scratched at my arms, and the ground became uneven. I nearly tripped twice, my heart hammering in my chest. I told myself I just needed to create distance, find a clearing, regain control. But the whistle followed. Not behind me this time. Ahead, always ahead. I started to run. My pack bounced against my back, breath burning in my lungs. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, almost drowning out the sound, but not completely. The whistle cut through everything, calm and steady, as if whoever or whatever was making it wasn't exerting any effort at all. I burst into a small clearing, sunlight spilling down in harsh, blinding beams. I stopped abruptly, gasping for air, spinning around. The whistling stopped. I stood there, shaking, sweat running down my spine, waiting for something to emerge from the trees. Nothing did. I almost cried from relief. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe exhaustion and adrenaline had messed with my senses. I checked my map, trying to reorient myself, when a realization hit me so hard, my knees nearly gave out. The whistle started again right behind me, close, closer than it had ever been. I didn't turn around. Every instinct screamed not to. Instead, I ran. I ran harder than I ever had in my life, crashing through underbrush, not caring about scratches or twisted ankles. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to keep moving. The whistle chased me, sometimes fading, sometimes impossibly near, as if it were right at my ear. At one point, I heard something else beneath it, footsteps that didn't match mine, heavier, slower, patient. Eventually, through the trees, I saw asphalt, a parking lot, my car. I burst out of the forest, lungs screaming, vision swimming. The moment my boots hit pavement, the sound stopped, instantly. No fading, no echo, just gone. I turned around, finally daring to look back. The tree line stood silent and ordinary, sunlight filtering through like nothing had happened. No movement, no sound, just birds, chirping again like they'd never left. I sat on the ground for a long time, shaking, trying to understand what had happened. I checked my phone. Still no signal. When it finally returned a few miles down the road, I saw that only 2 hours had passed since I'd parked. It felt like an entire day. I never reported the incident. What would I even say? That the forest followed me, that something whistled just out of sight and waited for me to make a mistake. I still hike, but never alone, and never without headphones, not playing music, just plugged in, because sometimes, in quiet places, your mind fills the silence with things that don't want to be heard, and sometimes, the forest whistles back. I used to believe that camping alone was the purest way to experience nature, not as an act of bravery, but as a form of quiet meditation, a way to strip life down to its simplest elements: fire, shelter, silence, and thought. And that belief is exactly what led me to that remote mountain campsite, hours away from the nearest town, where there was no cell signal, no marked trails nearby, and no one to hear you if something went wrong. A fact I knew and accepted when I parked my car at the end of a long gravel road and began hiking in with my pack. As the sun slowly lowered behind the ridge, painting the sky orange and purple, while the forest grew darker and denser with every step. And I remember feeling proud of myself, proud that I could handle solitude, proud that I wasn't afraid of the quiet like so many people claimed to be. because at that time I thought fear only lived where danger was obvious, not in places that seemed peaceful and untouched. I chose my campsite carefully, following basic survival advice I'd read countless times, setting up near, but not directly beside a creek, clearing the ground of sharp stones, pitching my tent with the entrance facing open space instead of dense trees, and building a small fire pit even though I didn't plan to keep a fire going all night, because I liked the comfort of knowing I could make one quickly if needed. And as the daylight faded completely, and the forest shifted into its nighttime version of itself, filled with unfamiliar sounds and moving shadows, I cooked a simple meal, drank water, and sat staring into the darkness beyond the firelight, listening to insects and distant owls, telling myself that this was what people meant when they talked about reconnecting with nature. By the time I crawled into my tent, the temperature had dropped sharply, the kind of mountain cold that seeps into your bones, and I zipped myself into my sleeping bag, letting the fatigue of the day pull me toward sleep. But even as my eyes closed, I noticed something odd about the night sounds, how they seemed to come in waves, moments of loud chirping, followed by stretches of almost complete silence, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. And I remember thinking that I'd read somewhere how animals go quiet when a predator is nearby, a thought that made me shift uncomfortably. Before dismissing it as my imagination feeding on isolation, I must have drifted off at some point, because the next thing I knew, I was awake, heart pounding, with no clear memory of what had startled me, only the lingering sense that something was wrong. And as I lay there in the dark, listening, I heard it, the faintest sound of pressure against the side of my tent, not a scrape or a claw like an animal, but a slow, deliberate push, as if someone were pressing their fingers into the fabric, just to see how it would react. And my entire body went rigid, as I stared at the thin nylon wall inches from my face, watching it bow inward, and then relax, bow inward, and relax again, each movement sending a jolt of fear through me. I held my breath, telling myself it had to be an animal, maybe a curious deer or raccoon, but the rhythm of the pressure didn't feel random, and when it stopped, I expected to hear scuffling or retreating footsteps, but instead, I heard something far worse, the sound of slow footsteps moving around my tent, careful, measured steps that crunched softly against leaves and dirt, circling me, stopping occasionally, then continuing. And in that moment, every warning I'd ever read about solo camping came rushing back. All the statistics about how most violent encounters in remote areas involve other humans, not wildlife. All the advice about trusting your instincts when something feels wrong. My hand shook as I reached for my flashlight, and I shouted, my voice cracking, "Hey, who's there?" And the footsteps stopped instantly, replaced by a silence so deep it felt unnatural, like the forest itself had gone dead. And I waited, straining to hear breathing, movement, anything, but nothing came. And after a long, terrifying minute, I convinced myself that I'd scared whatever it was away, that maybe I'd imagined the whole thing in a half-dream state. Still, I didn't sleep. I lay there staring at the tent ceiling, muscles tense, listening to every tiny sound, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The forest sounds hadn't returned. No insects, no distant calls, just emptiness. And then, without warning, a shadow passed between my tent and the faint glow of the dying campfire embers outside. A tall, unmistakably human shape, moving slowly, deliberately, as if whoever it belonged to knew I was watching. And panic flooded through me so fast I felt dizzy. I screamed and turned on my lantern, flooding the inside of the tent with harsh light, expecting to see the outline of someone standing right outside. But when I burst out of the tent, heart racing, flashlight sweeping wildly across the campsite, there was nothing there, no movement, no sound, no sign that anyone had been present at all. And the forest, as if mocking me, resumed its normal nighttime chorus like a switch had been flipped. I stood there shaking for a long time, trying to decide what to do, knowing that hiking out in the dark was dangerous, but staying felt worse, and in the end, exhaustion and fear combined into a numb determination to just wait for morning. So I rebuilt the fire slightly, sat with my back against a tree, and forced myself to stay awake, watching the shadows, every sense on high alert. But nothing else happened that night, and when the sky finally began to lighten with the first hints of dawn, I felt a wave of relief so intense it almost made me cry. As soon as there was enough light to see clearly, I began packing up, moving quickly, eager to put distance between myself and that place. And that's when I noticed the footprints, faint but unmistakable impressions, in the dirt around my tent. Human footprints, barefoot, leading away from the campsite toward the trees. And what chilled me most wasn't just that they were there, but that they didn't come from anywhere. No tracks leading into the site, only away from it, as if whoever or whatever had simply appeared during the night and vanished again before morning. I didn't stop to examine them further. I didn't take photos. I packed my gear, shouldered my pack, and left, walking fast, constantly looking over my shoulder, flinching at every sound. And when I finally reached my car hours later, safe and back in the human world, I felt something I hadn't expected. Shame, not for being scared, but for ever believing that solitude meant safety, that nature was empty when humans weren't around. I never reported what happened, because I knew how it would sound, because I knew there was no proof, and because part of me was afraid of the answer, afraid that if someone took it seriously, it would confirm that what I experienced was real. And even now, years later, when I think about that night, what haunts me most isn't the footsteps, or the shadow, or the footprints, but the way the forest went silent, the way everything living seemed to step aside, as if it knew something was there that didn't belong, something that wasn't supposed to be seen. And every time I hear someone say they love camping alone because it's peaceful, I think about that tent wall, slowly pressing inward, and I know that peace is just an illusion that disappears the moment something decides you're not alone anymore. I didn't believe in ghost stories when I went on that hike. Not really. And that's probably why what happened still refuses to fit neatly into my understanding of the world. Because everything about that trip started off painfully normal, almost boring. The kind of ordinary experience that makes you trust your surroundings, without question. And that trust is exactly what made the warning so easy to ignore. There were 3 of us, me, Aaron, and Lucas, and we had planned the hike for months, a multi-day trek through a mountain trail known more for its views than its danger, a place families visited in the summer, and amateur hikers bragged about online. And when we registered at the ranger station that morning, the woman behind the desk barely looked up. She just checked our names, reminded us about weather conditions, and told us to be back within 3 days. Nothing unusual, nothing ominous, nothing that hinted at how wrong things were about to go. The first day passed easily, almost lazily. The trail was wide and well maintained, sunlight breaking through the trees in soft patterns, the air crisp and clean, and I remember feeling grateful for the simplicity of it all. The steady rhythm of walking, the casual conversation between friends, the shared jokes and complaints about sore shoulders and heavy packs. And it wasn't until late afternoon, as the trail narrowed and began to climb, that we saw him, an older man walking alone toward us from the opposite direction. His clothes were worn but practical, his pack small, his face lined in a way that suggested he'd spent a lot of time outdoors. And when he stopped in front of us, blocking the trail just slightly, I assumed he was about to ask for directions, or make some harmless comment about the weather. Instead, he looked at each of us in turn, his eyes lingering a little too long, and said quietly, "Don't camp near the river bend tonight." His voice was calm, but heavy, like he was stating a fact rather than offering advice, and I laughed reflexively. The kind of laugh you give when someone says something odd and you don't know how else to respond. While Aaron thanked him politely, and Lucas shrugged, and when we asked why, the man only shook his head and repeated, "People don't come back from there," before stepping aside and continuing down the trail without another word, leaving us standing there exchanging amused glances, already turning it into a joke as we resumed our hike, mocking the dramatic delivery, telling ourselves he was probably just trying to scare tourists. By the time we reached the river bend, the sun was low, and the area was perfect, flat ground, access to water, a wide open view of the valley below. And despite the warning, or maybe because of it, we decided to camp there anyway, joking about how we'd survive the night and live to tell the story. And as we set up our tents and built a small fire, the forest around us felt peaceful, almost welcoming. The sound of the river steady and calming, and if there was any part of me that felt uneasy, it was buried beneath laughter and the comfort of not being alone. Night fell slowly, the sky deepening into dark blue, and then black, stars appearing one by one, and we sat around the fire talking until the cold crept in, eventually retreating to our tents. And that's when I noticed the silence, how abruptly the normal nighttime sounds seemed to drop away, leaving only the river, louder now, rushing and relentless. And I remember lying there listening to it, thinking about the man on the trail, replaying his words in my head, and feeling an irrational surge of irritation at myself for letting such a small interaction get under my skin. I don't know how long I'd been drifting in and out of sleep when I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving just beyond the fire pit, and at first I assumed one of my friends was up, maybe going to the bathroom. But the steps didn't sound rushed or casual. They sounded measured, purposeful. And then a voice cut through the darkness, low and close, whispering, "You should have listened." And every hair on my body stood on end as recognition slammed into me, because it was the same voice, the same calm, heavy tone as the man we'd met earlier that day. I shot upright, heart pounding, calling out Aaron's name, then Lucas's, and within seconds, all three of us were out of our tents, flashlights on, beams slicing through the darkness, scanning the campsite and the surrounding trees. But there was no one there, no movement, no sound except the river, and the longer we stood there, the more wrong it felt, like we were intruding on something we weren't meant to see. And when we regrouped, voices hushed, adrenaline still buzzing, we all admitted we'd heard the same thing, the same words, spoken once, and only once. We didn't sleep after that. We sat close together until dawn, the fire burning low, flinching at every noise. And when morning finally came, the relief was immediate, but incomplete, like waking from a nightmare that left a residue you couldn't shake. And after packing up, we agreed to report what happened at the ranger station when we finished the hike, partly for peace of mind, and partly because none of us wanted to be alone with the memory of that voice. 2 days later, we stood at the ranger desk again, describing the encounter. The woman's expression changed. Her casual professionalism slipped as she asked us to repeat our description of the man, his clothes, his age, his voice, and when we finished, she went quiet for a long moment before excusing herself and returning with an older ranger, a man whose demeanor was serious in a way that made my stomach drop. And after listening carefully, he told us something that still makes my chest tighten when I think about it. No one matching that description had checked in on the trail that week, or any week recently. And when he pulled out a faded photo from a drawer, my breath caught, because the face staring back at me was unmistakable. The same lined features, the same eyes, and the ranger explained that the man in the photo had gone missing over 10 years ago, near the river bend. His body never recovered, his disappearance one of those unsolved cases that linger quietly in park records without resolution. And when we asked how someone missing for a decade could have spoken to us, the ranger didn't answer. He just told us we were lucky, told us some people never get warnings at all. We left the station in silence, the weight of what we'd learned settling over us like a fog. And even now, years later, I can't bring myself to hike near rivers, can't hear rushing water at night without remembering that voice in the dark. Calm and certain. And what haunts me most isn't the idea of a ghost or a spirit or whatever explanation people prefer, but the possibility that some places remember what happened there, that they replay it over and over, waiting for someone new to step into the same mistake, and that somewhere along that trail, near that quiet bend in the river, a man is still walking, still warning strangers not to make the choice that cost him his life, knowing that eventually someone won't listen, because we never do. Nature is beautiful, but it doesn't belong to us, and sometimes the forest keeps secrets it never intends to give back. If you enjoyed these true scary hiking and camping horror stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And remember, when you hear something calling you in the woods, don't answer.